gracias. Los voy a dejar en esta maravillosa charla. Aquí nos va a acompañar, además de Rebe, nuestra amiga Abigail, que va a estar también aquí con ustedes. La dejo también a ella para que se presente, quien va a ser nuestra moderadora. Y pues muchas gracias a todos y todas a nombre de EXATEC Relaciones Internacionales. Gracias de verdad, Rebe. Adelante, Abby.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you so much for accepting the invitation, Rebecca. I know this is going to be a formality because I am pretty sure there's not a single soul in the international relation field, especially us exatecs, that do not know who you are. So welcome everyone to today's talk that it was titled Artificial Intelligence in Trump's Era, Regulatory Tendencies and Use on International Cooperation and Humanitarian Issues. As I mentioned, we invited Rebeca Moreno Jiménez. And if we have someone in the audience that do not know who is she is an experienced professional in the humanitarian, peace building, and international development sectors. Currently, she serves in a dual capacity as the Innovation Officer and Lead Data Scientist at the UN Refugee Agency. In this role, she focuses on leveraging data science, big data, and artificial intelligence to improve protection and decision-making in the humanitarian sector. In the domain of international development, Rebecca dedicated 5 years to the World Bank Mexico Field Office, contributing to open data initiatives, communications, and access to information privacy policy efforts. As an ICT policy consultant for GAPS Uganda, a grassroots nonprofit organization committed to advocating for transnational justice and the prevention of genocide and mass atrocities, she focused on strengthening efforts in early warning and early response measures with appropriate technology deployment for Uganda's operational context. She is also a former Fulbright scholar at SIPA in Columbia University, where she earned a Master of Public Administration with a specialization in technology, policy management, and humanitarian affairs. And of course, so much more things, but we have a limited time in here. So I try to focus on all the achievements that you have in this field, Rebecca. Would you mind to say a couple of words as an introduction, and how does it feel to be involved in such a trending topic?
First of all, thank you so much, Abigail, for moderating this conversation. I hate that by PowerPoint, so I'm just gonna try to focus on having a chat with you and trying to understand also some of your concerns you might have seen this. So thank you for the moderation, and also thank you, of course, to the Association International Relations Alumni and Student Association for the kind invitation to this conversation. Which I think is very prompt, and it's something that is happening right now. And I have mainly 3 messages on these that I'm going to distill in the chat and hope that maybe you can elicit some food for thought and also for you be able to discuss at some point. The first is that you're seeing, and I put it in the Trump era, it's not like a catchy thing, it's just that it's the reason why I haven't even come my hair today is because we're actually seeing the void and the need of multilateralism today more than ever, right? The void of leadership that the US, the United States, is creating with a new administration in a country that has always remarkably led some of the humanitarian aid efforts by supporting humanitarian aid actors, by supporting humanitarian aid projects, and supporting humanitarian aid innovation and initiatives, right, for the past administrations in the past. So the recent 2 weeks past events has caught the humanitarian aid sector by surprise. Many of you are working with that sector or are benefiting from that sector or are receiving funding from that sector that are no longer going to be, being supported either financially or maybe even supported politically, right? So there are some, I would say, topics that are not of the priority or they're being deprioritized in the administration, namely topics that we care a lot, which is diversity, inclusion, and topics that are related to gender, topics that are related to migration, which is one of the things, and displacement in our case. Nevertheless, there's still, of course, willingness to support certain areas. And in that willingness, this is where we're getting in the middle, which is, okay, how do we make sure that in this void of leadership, multilateralism is still alive, and B, creating alliances among other actors, right? And so instead of doing the divide and conquer, like it's join and conquer, because this multilateral leader, it's giving this void. And in this void, there's going to be new actors, as you're seeing, that are arising, that are non-state actors. You saw, and why I call it in the AI in the era of Trump, is the first time that you see in an inauguration of a presidential inauguration, so many tech giants in the presidential inauguration, giving a clear message of the Trump administration. I would say one of the priorities is to develop technology for them to lead in another way. So technology as a way to increase GDP, technology as a way to improve services for citizens and for what they call America, right? So that's the message I wanted to give. And they were missing, so the void, again, that I'm telling you, they were missing in certain multilateral arena conversations. So for example, they were missing in Davos. It was at the same time, the same day, actually, 20th of January, at the beginning of Davos, where the world leads, especially private sector companies, which is the main target audience for the event, discuss the priority of the geopolitics. And the topic of Davos this year was, second year in a row, artificial intelligence and how to improve services and products for citizens. And they sent their second in commands, because they were on the inauguration, sending a clear signal of the priorities of the administration in terms of sectorial support. And so in that void and that need for multilateralism, you have other actors that are becoming also the new, in the geopolitical scenery, the new actors that are actually either countering that void or trying to take the lead on that void, that emptiness that is creating, and namely the European Union and China. And so the European Union, it's leading, and I'm going to describe the three actors on the void, is leading on AI, specifically artificial intelligence, with their responsible AI Act. They were the first ones to do a regional-based legal framework for General Data Protection Regulation, so it's GDPR. And GDPR is the lead of data protection for citizens to enhance their privacy and to enhance that their data is it's used in safe manners and not to fit into the tech machine, but that the citizens are feeling safe and the data is securely hosted or at least securely used. And so with the right to be forgotten and other innovations in legal frameworks, they are leading in AI by creating the strongest legal frameworks that can be applicable later or translated into political policies and also other products and services that are embedded for them. China is leading in AI research with the highest number of patents by WIPO, the World International Property Organization, and with almost 30-something years of research. Tsinghua University and other universities are leading the research on AI, especially in open source, contrary to tech giants that have proprietary AI. Open source, truly open source AI is open code, open training data sets, and open results, right? So that's really open. Some things that they claim to be open, it's because they open maybe the model or they open the efficiencies of the model, but without unveiling what data you were trained on or without unveiling anything that is related to your model training set and the divisions and the things on why is the AI doing what it's doing, then you're not truly open source, right? So China is truly leading on open source. If you see, well, truly in the DeepSeek, if you noticed, created a turmoil in the economic markets. But it was semi-open because it didn't unveil the training data. They kind of reverse engineer and noticed that it was OpenAI data. And they unveil a bit the code, the efficiencies, and something. So in the attempt to lead open source, they kind of did this product that is still kind of not there yet because it's a startup. And there's a lot of criticism, of course, on the responses that they tend to be biased, especially against the Chinese regime. But in terms of openness, it gave a great hit on the stock market prices. You saw it on NVIDIA, which is the processor of OpenAI, right? So the microchips are of the processing power of OpenAI is in NVIDIA, and you saw DeepSeek hitting. So China is already hitting the void, or actually getting into the void that the US is leading until 2 weeks ago. It's happening also the rate, and so it's alluding to my second point, the rate of these advances and why AI has become so important as a geopolitical tool is that it's super fast. You're seeing advances that before, when you were studying, or at least when we were studying like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, depending on what generation you were studying with our professor saying, oh my God, in 20 years, China is going to lead, you should learn Chinese. This is in like 2 weeks that you have seen the movement of the market, and specifically here. So this is not 20 years like study Chinese, like you should have learned Chinese before. That's what's happening right now. I did study Chinese. It was so difficult. So it's, I did just one semester in Tec de Monterrey. So that's that. So that's one of the things that you should be aware on the movements of the geopolitical movement. So the speed is faster and the movements are faster. So that's second. And the third part is related to you, which is the skilling and upskilling and reskilling. We say in AI, upskill, it's like increase your knowledge. Reskill is switch your sector and focus, right? Upskilling and reskilling in new technologies like AI is how you leverage the technology for the work that you already do. It's related to human augmentation. It's creating the so-called superhumans, right? So if you're doing your reports for your NGO that you're working, or you're doing whatever that you're doing, I don't know, your accounts for your program financial management account and things like that. And you used to be a very productive human being. Maybe you're 8 hours a week that you're working, you can do 3 reports and through 2 Excels. Then the capacities with AI will allow you to be faster, more efficient, and more accurate in order to avoid mistakes. Now, for upskilling and reskilling, especially in international relations, it's either you are a political scientist, international relations major, and you get the technology skills, and you get understanding on the policies of the technology, for you to become a hybrid, which is why I hold the title of data scientist, which is computer science based. And or you are a computer scientist, and then you understand how legal frameworks are created, terms of use legalities, what's the geopolitics of governance of AI, why is the things are doing. So those hybrids are being created. And I think, if I may say, I think Tec de Monterrey model is switching into maybe creating these hybrids, but you need to really leverage the model, right? So I think most of the students are in like, oh, I'm just gonna take the basic requirements and that's it, right? And that's not the way we should be thinking. We should be thinking is how else and how much and how more. So what else should I study? How much should I study? Because the other ones are gonna be faster. So there's a saying in AI that says your skill set, lawyer, internationalist, political scientist, is never gonna be replaced by an AI. Forget about it. Unless we enter into super intelligence, which probably is gonna happen in 10 years or 20 years time, depending on the tech giant advances, which is super intelligence. It's an intelligence more intelligent than humans, okay? So it's like more cyborg kind of thing. That's not happening yet. But you're never gonna replace by an AI. But your job, your skill set, and you can be replaced by someone that knows more AI than you. So someone that is faster than you in financial reporting, someone that has better grammar than you, either in Spanish, English, French, whatever language you work. And so those skill sets as humanitarians, as data scientists, and or internationalists, lawyers, etc., will be replaced by someone that is faster than you because they know how to use AI. And so that's something on the skilling and upskilling that you need to be aware. Now, referring back to the Monterrey Tech model, do more, do what else, how much more, and should you learn? Well, it depends on your gaps, right? So it's a self-identification exercise and reflection on, okay, I have no idea how to do this Excel unless to use formulas in Gen AI to do Excel. I don't even know to prompt and VLOOKUP thing, right? So those things that you are gonna be learning, you're gonna learn them faster. What we used to do in YouTube in like maybe 20 hours is going to be a 5-second prompt, right? So if you learn how to prompt, which is one of the things, if you learn how to cite correctly, as you should do, then it's a matter of just becoming faster, right? So the 3 main things is the void and the leadership need, the need for multilateralism, especially in humanitarian sector, is being cut, the speed that is happening, And the third one is upskilling and reskilling human resources that you have. And so with these three, there's the conversation that maybe I want to have with you on in the humanitarian sector, AI could help a lot to develop efficiencies in areas where resources have been cut,
What
right?
a
We
strong,
can, yeah,
sorry, what
Abigail,
a
please. No, no,
strong
no.
way to start this conversation, Rebecca. And for those of you who are watching this on video, you may notice I'm just nodding and nodding and nodding because I intended this conversation to go guided by a couple of articles you have on the subject. And of course, all these
Yeah.
topics you mentioned just now, I have them to being able to discuss them on more detail. So for if you don't mind, can we start with that part? So
Absolutely.
thank
Shoot,
you.
as we call. Or not
So
shoot,
for
nothing shooting here. Not in my
so
agency.
for all of those who are interested, the first article we are going to discuss is in collaboration, of course, with some other authors, but we are focusing today on Rebecca. And the name is Explicability of Humanitarian AI, a Matter of Principles. It was published on October 6, 2021 at the Journal of International Humanitarian Actions. In this article, and that's how you started this conversation, it is mentioned how 8 organizations are called to abide by a broad set of rules condensing the humanitarian principles that are humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence. And you even ask on the article, how do these principles operate when decision making is being automatized? I think that question can be applied in all the fields, not all the humanitarian ones, and not only in the international organizations. And it seems to me that it's because people right now is trying to measure the response and the use of AI, which could be considered new and unknown, with the rules of the familiar.
Yeah.
So the tools we're managing right now are not the proper ones on my perspective. Do you agree with this? And if so, what will be your opinion and recommendation to approach a measure for these contributions of AI?
Okay, that's a great question, and I think it's not that they're not appropriate. As I was saying, like the second point, the speed is so gigantic right now that our tools are becoming no longer valid, or they're becoming obsolete. And that's the issue, right? It's not that we have the wrong tools. It's just that the environment and the context is changing so quickly that whatever we were using yesterday or the year before, now with the new complexities, remember, we are also dealing with complex topics, right? Everything international relations and multilateralism is climate change, migration and displacement, things that are related to like development of economic, economic development, et cetera, right? So that's those topics are interrelated with other topics. And so to your point, yes, the tools can be obsolete very quickly and no longer valid to them. And the way we apply AI in humanitarian settings, but as you are correctly saying, it can be applicable to something else, especially those scholars of conflict. Humanity, neutrality, and partial independence are principles that we abide by. So especially humanity, right? So humanity refers to the principle that if you see human suffering, you must address it wherever it's found with and a particular attention to ones that are most vulnerable, right? So children, women, elder, forcibly displaced people, people that are being bombed. Neutrality is that you're not favoring either side of the conflict if there's an armed conflict. Impartiality is that you're serving on the basis of solely need and you're not discriminating. So whoever needs the most, then you're going to serve. And independence is that you align independently, and specifically for the UN, this is one principle, you are not aligning to any political, economic, or military objective for the actors that you're dealing with. You have your own objectives to protect the people that you're serving. Those principles are the thing that we work with in humanitarian settings. We're strict about it. But as you well said, you can also apply them into your day-to-day jobs in many ways whenever you are doing maybe a negotiation between two parties that are in conflict, or two investors, or two companies, or government and civil society, name it, and they're the same principles. AI doesn't distinguish principles, right? So it is just about human augmentation, task optimizations, and automation, right? And so in order for us to do augmentation, optimization, and automation, so automation, doing things automatically, automated decision-making systems, but very dangerous in humanitarian settings. Optimization, which is making efficiencies in order to be faster, more like timely in response. And then human augmentation is what we're telling you on reskilling and skilling, right? Which is like, okay, how am I going to become faster in order for me to serve the more people that are arriving into this refugee settlement camp office in an urban area, and there are more and more coming, especially with more and more conflict and more people being bombed. So like people are in desperate need of support, and you have the same staff and even cutting staff. So the response in the humanitarian sector, the response in civil society, the response even in government, whenever you are having a bigger country, then your governor is smaller. And so you need to think about how you're going to leverage that. But in order for you not to create what it's actually in GDPR and in our policy, automated decision-making systems. So I would say systems that are fully automated with any human intervention, human interaction, human control. So no human in the loop. So these systems apply to socio-technical, as they call it, or societal issues. For example, would you imagine having an automated decision-making system to decide if you are going to be receiving a scholarship for Tec de Monterrey or else? And so instead of a human reviewing your application and seeing your socioeconomic study and understanding your family and doing your home visit for the social worker to go and see, then no, you're going to put everything on a system. The machine is going to give you a score, and that's it. And no appeal, by the way. So those systems that are affecting socio-technical services, so the decisions that are going to be education, access to water, access to related services, economic services, cash assistance, things like these, governments in the name of efficiency, as we call them, because they're overwhelmed, understaffed, and underfunded by their congresses, by our other countries in the case of humanitarians as well, then they have the temptation to go and purchase those systems, which is like, this company is selling this to automate, I don't know, the scholarship reception or loans for the bank or educational grants or things like that. And they do it with the solely blessing of the private sector company, and they never check or aim to actually skill themselves, understand the system, and say, okay, how can I interject in the process? The company will say, yes, it's not automated, you have certain decisions, but actually it's not that customizable, right? And so when building systems, AI is not very good. AI is as good as the human that is using it, or AI is as bad as the human that is using it. So if you use AI for autonomous weapons, then it's very bad, right? So, and that could be autonomous, by the way, automated decision-making system, a drone that actually is trying to target and do the most damage, which we have seen in certain conflicts, gospel, namely one. So if the AI is used for good and actually with certain metrics and with certain human in the loop, human in command approach, which is what we try to do with the paper, then whatever you're using is going to create those efficiencies that are super needed. But at the end, the responsible decision for giving you the scholarship will be a human, right? It's not that they put everything to the machine and then the machine decide for you. Maybe it helped the human to analyze your application and read a special part, and then the human needs to also check and maybe override the decision and say, this is not eligible according, and I think they are, or vice versa. I think the machine thinks they're eligible and they're defrauding, and I know because I can tell because I receive 10,000 applications a year. Right, so
I
that's
think,
that's one. I don't know if that responds to your question, Ari.
of course. And I
Yeah.
actually think you are touching base on a lot of critical points and aspects. And of course, opening the door to a lot of issues and problems with the implementation of AI. One of the big ones, and you mentioned, AI doesn't know principles. And this was a huge topic when AI made a bigger appearance because it has been among us for a long time. But let's say that ChatGPT on 2022 opened the door to chaos. And the red flag on all of this was ethics. Everyone agrees that we need ethics inside or with the implementation of AI.
Yeah.
However, this is the main philosophical discussion of what is good, what is bad, because honestly, nobody can agree on what will be a tangible ethical implementation. But if an ethical definition could be established for the use and integration of artificial intelligence, and taking into account the current international scenario, what will be your definition for it? What could you consider will be an approximation?
I'm gonna counter that argument, and I have a very good article to counter that one. I would go not ethical, but human rights based. Why is that? Because human rights, the legal framework for human rights was established with the Human Rights Declaration in 1948, actually part of the foundation of the UN. And so anything that it's already legally defined as human rights, as universal or not, that you might think they are, but they are there and they are typified, right, at a legal basis. Human rights can be translated into anything. The right for non-discrimination, for example, which is a human right, can be translated into having a representative data to train AI topics. If we go by the ethical approach, which is, and I understand from the ethical perspective, the humanitarian ethics for us is the principles, but a lot of people are saying like ethical approach, and they're creating their own ethical principles. And with that, Abby, what you're alluding, which is like they're creating their own definitions, and we're entering in dangerous territory when they're trying to create, because in the convenience of some companies or the convenience of some organizations, they can leave some principles out if they want, right? Like transparency, or maybe they're not going to leave transparency, but some of these things, right? But you cannot leave human rights out because they exist and they are legally they're in normative sphere, right? So whenever you're touching into the human rights, why AI needs human rights, and like why do emerging tech, and this is the reading that I'm going to share, maybe I can share in the chat. There's a block and block, oldie for AI is like 2-3 years. It's human rights that we should focus on, right? Because how can we know when we already have privacy, for example, the right to privacy? So you wouldn't like AI, and there's a huge controversy right now on LinkedIn that they were using our photos for the AI training with our consent. If you see the news, you don't want your right to privacy to be mermaided, and your right to privacy is ensured by your legal frameworks because it's a basic human right, right? And so in many of the companies are overemphasizing ethics because then they can manipulate whatever principles they want to put. And I would argue and I would defend ethics and human rights. So on the ethical approach for us is more on the humanitarian capabilities, do no harm. If I would to define, to respond to your question, is do no harm, which is our main ethical principle as humanitarian. If you're doing more harm than good with AI, you don't build that, right? That's do no harm is the ethical principle. So that's the only thing that I'm gonna do. And beyond that, then everything else, I'm gonna just go to the human rights due diligence and the human rights legal frameworks and translate that into whatever you're doing on AI. And human rights, something that you study in international relations, so you should know the legal frameworks for the Universal Declaration and other covenants related to the right of Geneva Conventions, the law of war, etc., etc.
Very
I don't know if that
interesting.
responded.
Thank you so much for that definition. I hope some of the policymakers are hearing us this morning.
I hope so too, but they are, because they're the future ones. So I hope that they are training themselves, skilling or skilling some of the students here hearing the conversation. They are the future policymakers. This is
There's an
advancing very fast.
interesting phrase in the article that is actually pronounced by the United Nations on a speech on 2018 that says life and death decisions should not be delegated to machines.
Indeed.
Has this perception changed now that regular users have easier access to machines for daily life decisions?
No, no, it hasn't. Life and death decisions should be never left to machines because they are not as complex in a scenarios as humans are with the experience that they have. So in the case of humanitarians or in the case of people in public administration, the years of experience, the exposure to different crises, to different problems, complex problems, have given a human to, as I was telling, yet the super intelligence capacity to respond complex problems. right? So the perception that has changed, Abby, just for you to, it's to create efficiencies. Before we were like no, we shouldn't do that. We should still kind of like use Google. And in the current scenario, the only thing that has changed is that, okay, we're gonna use AI for certain things that maybe are repetitive, cumbersome, and boring, basically. And for them to utilize their skills into something that is more meaningful and more impactful, right? So if you're doing copy pasting, whatever I'm telling you, if you're doing something that is repetitive and boring, that should be done by a machine. And then you, as human, should be doing legal analysis, conversations, policy drafting, creativity. You shouldn't put like AI to put the things that are creative, right? Which is what Gen AI is doing right now. You should put in AI to the things that are non-creative, repetitive, for your brain to be more creative. So in the quest that you are describing, and in some of the cases, this quest is what they're saying. It's like, okay, what skill do I want to do? I had a thing with my office the other day in my team. They were to debate if they should to make we have a volunteer every week to take the notes, the minutes of the meeting. It's a rotating share, just by the way, right? So one, it's the volunteers, I'm gonna take the minutes, and then they write it. And so one of the team members said, now in Zoom, in Microsoft Teams, in all the messaging platforms, they have the transcription automated by AI. And they were saying, okay, shall we use the transcription tool to do it? Yes or no? Because it uses AI. And I obviously interjected on that one. And I said, I have one, it's not yes or no. I said, it depends on what you want to develop as a skill, upskilling and reskilling. If you want to develop creativity, syntax, analysis, and summarization yourself, you should take the notes. If you want to develop translation, transcription, data cleaning, and actually let the AI everything to do, but I'm just going to be the monkey cleaning the data, then let the AI do it, right? So what do you want to develop? And they were like just thinking, and I was like, because if you want to develop that, then yes, you can be super lazy and then do that, but that's great. That's you being more efficient, and maybe it's verbatim translation. And the second thing that I said, obviously with my accent, I said there's people on the diversity that exist in this organization that were not native speakers of English. So I bet that even the most complex of the transcription tools that they are here, they're not going to be able to capture my accent. Neither the accent of my colleague that is from South Africa, or maybe the British one. No, the British ones are actually, yes. But yes, we have our Kenya colleague, etc., etc. Now that we struggle sometimes because the accents are different. And AI, if we struggle with Indian accents, with Kenyan accents, with South African accents, as humans that understand, I would bet yet AI has not been able to develop that complexity for the accents. And if not to a test, your Siri, try to speak to it in English. That's your AI. So that's that. But yeah, no, not yet. The trend is changing in certain areas that are cumbersome indeed, but not for life-saving decisions. Not yet. Not ever, I guess. This is the human realm, that one.
Let's hope so.
Let's hope so. I don't know if they have questions. I'm very curious about why are they interested in AI, being international relations people. Can we open the floor?
Sure, of course. If there is any question, please let us know right now. You can just open your mic. I think this conversation is like really organic, no, like we say. And also, in the meantime, I'm gonna send you guys forms, Google Forms. If you agree, you can share with us if you're an EXATEC or not. Or it's just your name, email, in case you want, and your matricula, also in case you would like to. So, is there any question? Anybody?
Or comments, actually. What are you seeing? What are you observing? Why is AI important for your work? I don't know.
I actually have a comment, Rebe and Abby. For instance, I've been asked by several people here, now that we're having the judicial system change and reform, and I've been asked if I would like to be judged by AI or a person. And
Interesting.
I would like to be judged by AI. Am I right?
On efficiencies of the humans. Okay, I see. So whenever the human capacity is not there, you think AI is going to be more fair as a legal officer? That's a very interesting.
I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. It's a question that I have. I mean, I also ask to some other people, because sometimes I don't know, maybe you have had the opportunity, or not opportunity, the terrible situation in which you have to deal with a judge or with the judicial system here in our system, and you notice how medieval it is, no? You cannot even be in some of the processes. You cannot even be contacted by email or any other digital forms. So you have to go there, or somebody has to go and find you personally to contact you, or to say, okay, you are, to give you a notification, for instance, no? And so this is like really, like, for instance, I just have one thing, one process in the judicial system. It's been there for 4 years and it's not advancing. It's like really frustrating. And I think that maybe in some cases, maybe AI can just make this faster, just like you said before. But I don't know. I am also concerned about the situation on human rights, on ethics, on how this is going to be happening. Also, I don't know if AI maybe can help avoid corruption in the judicial system, or in other systems, maybe. I don't know what you think.
This is fascinating, Abby. More people, please. On this
If
one,
I
would you
may
like to be
add
judged by
something,
AI in lieu of the judicial reform in Mexico?
if
That's an
I may add
interesting one.
something, I think that's a really interesting question in the side that could fall into a misconception of what AI is and what it can do. Because in current times, AI is seen as this magical thing that will bring answers to the human problems of the world. And we should start AI conversation by saying AI is fed with human knowledge. There is a human behind the machine that is telling the machine what to say, how to act. So in an outside perspective, we are dealing with a new version of a mechanical human. All the errors and mistakes you are experiencing are going to be as well reflected and replicated in the machine. That's so far the AI today.
Yeah. Good one, Ari. And that's the fascinating discussion is like when as we were telling you on the upskilling and reskilling and the services provision, you know? Yeah, AI has tremendous opportunities to improve services provision, and also tremendous opportunities to discriminate you in the services provision, especially as I was saying, like it's so limited because it's being trained by you, and so you get to select what cases maybe they're gonna be prioritized. And what you're saying is more on the agentic AI side, Diana, which is basically, how are you gonna serve my average citizen into processes that they can do, kind of like e-government, but like automated. So I don't know, my birth certificate, my fee for the driving ticket, or the taxes for my property, and things that you're like, or you know, del predial, no, like whatever. And these things are annoying even for the citizen and for them as well, I would say. And so you're creating efficiencies now. But if your predial system is horrible, then you're gonna, as I was correctly saying, then you're just gonna replicate a horrible system with some automation, right? Which is that's the thing. And the worst thing is you're doing that at citizen level, but we're gonna do the same if we're talking about policy framework, like governance of AI. If we haven't figured out, for example, governance of the internet, which is also creating a huge digital divide, disconnect, like how can you do governance of AI if you're still people without access to internet today, right? So that's one of the things that you need to first tackle, which is like the inequality, but at the same time, the digital divide. And again, I'm going to go to the reskilling and upskilling of our workforce, especially humanitarians and internationalists, political scientists, lawyers, because some of these tasks you can be not only more efficient, but also they're gonna, I'm telling you, there's gonna be a newer generation that's gonna be faster than you doing depositions, legal depositions, or things like that, legal research analysis, or things, because they're faster to retrieve information because they're leveraging the tools already. And so they're gonna become better researchers than you because you might be not leveraging the tools. But that doesn't mean that you're taught. So if you have good train of thought, then you're the smartest person dealing with AI, right? Otherwise, what Abigail is saying is then if you're very bad in your system or your, I would say, train of thought or your analysis, then you're just gonna put your own bias into whatever system you're putting, and you're gonna not do correct formulation of research questions, for example. And so that's one of the things. But I would say that one of the fascinating things on on the need for multilateralism in AI is that it's either that or non-state actors like the tech giants in the inauguration are gonna take that void, right? Because the void is there. The US, it's 2 weeks from now, it's just going into a demure, falling into the nadir that I don't know what's gonna be found. And so the new call for international relations is to be able to fill that void with something that is not non-state actor tech giant, which is what's happening right now, and maybe creating stronger institutions at local level, regional level, and multilateral level that are actually countering or trying to fill the void. And I think the multilateralism that we're seeing, especially now, is that it's going to become sectorial. So there's going to be sectorial expertise at multilateral level. In the meantime, that the geopolitical movements are being dealt with, right? And this is what we have been experiencing, which is like, okay, we don't have one of our major donors for humanitarian aid, 30% of our agencies. That what do we do? How do we create efficiencies with the 60% that is remaining, European Union, Japan, and the others? And can we leverage these technologies for something that, for example, is it possible to create a real question in the agency, a chatbot to provide basic returnees information to the Syrians that are going back to Syria? And then there's a question, if we can, technically speaking, we can. But what type of information? Is it in Arabic? Is it trustworthy? Like, what time if it happens? How often are going to change the chatbot information if the information over there changes, right? So you could actually be leading someone to their deaths if you don't know what's happening over there, and the chatbot just keep going, go back, or something along the lines, right? So that's the humanitarian principles of the do no harm that you were asking me, like being applied there, which is like, I know I can build a technical solution super quickly, but what happened on the operational context, and do I have the capacity to update quickly the information if it's no longer safe for them to return, right? So those are the questions. The technology, you can always resolve things with technology. What you cannot resolve is the complexity of the problem, right? There's one tiny section that you can leverage, and the other one is in the human realm, which is why you need the skill sets for doing that. And the multilateralism that I'm talking about is needed more than ever. You're seeing a change in geopolitics and a change on non-state actors. And I'm not talking about also the tech giants, which are legal state actors, non-state actors. I'm talking also about the I would say extreme groups, non-state actors, also leveraging AI to do autonomous weapons and kill the population that we care for. So that rise needs to be countered by people that knows how to do legal frameworks or as you were saying, Diana, like if you're gonna do judicial reform services, so I don't know, pay your services there, then who is gonna build that system? What companies is gonna be benefiting if it's a company that's building the system? And what biases are they gonna put into that one? Are you able to pay? It's not only about pay. Things that are payments are easy, no? Like the issues with decision making are the ones that are hard and shouldn't be in the AI realm, should be in the human realm still. But yeah,
But
I'm just like pushing you on this one for thought on the need of internationalists now more than ever. And the problems that we're arising with technologies, you need the hybrid multilateralism, right? So you need to be able to speak computer scientists, guys. And you're very lucky that you're in Tec de Monterrey, but there's not many of you with that knowledge. So leverage the school, the knowledge of the technical sector, and embed your knowledge from your, I would say, internationalist, political science, legal background that you have as researchers as well.
and
More questions? Maybe we could
I
open to.
think
Yeah.
it is not a minor thing what you're mentioning, especially because there are some sectors of the population that are not represented in global politics. And that just means that because right now someone doesn't have access to internet, someone doesn't have access to a computer, then that immediately means they are not gonna be taking into account of in the implementation of AI. Wouldn't this be discrimination? How do we fix that part? And I love the resolution you give in another of your articles. I'm gonna make publicity.
That is no,
of your
I'm very
articles.
embarrassed. Sometimes I just write them with a glass of wine. So it's like
No, but this other one is called Are Machine Learning Technologies Ready to be Used for Humanitarian Work and Development? This one is from July 2023,
Yeah.
and it was done on Cornell University also, as well in collaboration.
Mhm.
And you mentioned that what humans need to do is precisely applying the focus on identifying what the machines cannot identify these groups and sectors that are not being taken into account. So there's absolutely a need for human involvement in the application of artificial intelligence. But it's like I've been saying, AI is not here to replace us. It's here to adjust our responsibilities, to modify them. If we are being basic or pretty natural, it's like Darwin. The ones that survive will be the ones that adapt, not the strongest.
Yeah, especially if you have a meteorite that is called the US administration destroying a lot of the work that we have done for years. But that's not the case. I think, as I told you, I think it's about when you're not going to be replaced yet by an AI, but you're going to be replaced with someone that leverages AI better than you, okay? And knows how to deal with the system and knows how to spot inefficiencies done by the system because they're the critical thinkers, which is, okay, this was wrong. You were totally right as well. In the paper, we mentioned that there's lack of data quality. AI is fed by data, guys. And so whatever you fill into the machine is going to be able to, so if you give good research, and it's going to spit you out good research. If you get good inputs, and as you were saying, there's a lot of sectors of the world, and especially maybe the sectors that you care about. Maybe you care about education of indigenous people. Maybe you care about health and stateless, 4.4 million of them, by the way, without a state, with a member state, a nationality, right? Maybe you care about, like me, one of the 120 million forcibly displaced, and any services that are related. I think what the important thing of international relations is, what are you most passionate about? What do you care more? Because this is where the vulnerable people are. Usually we care a lot about social and complex causes. Climate change, as I was telling you, economic development, education, health, livelihoods and entrepreneurships, whatever that care, those sectors usually have underrepresented people in the sector, right? So in refugee entrepreneurships, there's many startups that can be, originated for their ideas, but guess what? They don't have identity documentation. Therefore, they can never register their NGO or their small and medium enterprise in anywhere because they're not even legally with an or formal identity documentation, less to have an NGO and founded by them. Not that they cannot, they actually are very smart to do some advocacy. So if you care about a certain topic and you care about a certain population, then you need to unveil them. What are they thinking about those systems that are being created, right? Because we're seeing the merge on the human augmentation. You're going to see AI more and more. The next 5 years, you're going to see more AI embedded into processes. You're going to see not only more chatbots, which is the thing that, you're going to see more powerful series that maybe are able to understand my accent in English and other accents. And maybe at some point, we're going to have AI that so far we're not, but we're funding one that is going to understand Kurdish, because no commercial tool has translation for Kurdish. We discovered that in Iraq. And so, like, there's languages that are not represented even in Google Translate. And those are indigenous languages that are very local. Refugees speak some of these languages. And we have, hours of interviews in that local language that they're doing their legal claim for asylum in a country in that local indigenous language. And this is where the realm of when the commercial, the non-state actors are not interested in develop a Gen AI model in Kurdish. How many people are going to use that model for translating God knows what? Maybe some of these languages are not even written. So they're verbal, oral languages. And so it's in our best interest to develop those systems for the people that we serve and the people that we aim to target and the people that are going to be our customers at some point, in the case that you're doing an enterprise, etc., that you understand who is not there. And why? Because it's a huge market opportunity for those with a company. And for us, it's a huge untapped resource for us to understand the population that might not be understood otherwise by other people that speak Spanish. Spanish Kurdish translation can be happening if you translate first English, I guess. But yeah, like those are things that, and you are able to be faster and serve them better. There's a question on the chat, I think maybe Abby, I don't know if you, this Pablo, or maybe Pablo
I'm
wants to
checking.
talk.
It's a comment of Pablo that is saying,
Yeah.
if you need some opinions, we are the leaders of AI development in police stations at Mexico City. And we have a technical background. In addition to politics, it's important to know the backgrounds of technology. And I think this comment in what you say, Rebe, is like the key, because we have been saying constantly, it is important that internationalists learn these new languages, learn AI. But I think in the back, we are also saying it is important that people involved with AI to know about international politics, because they need to know what are the groups that are being marginalized. They need to have that knowledge as well in order to change the problems from the root. Now, taking advantage of your experience in that, and because you mentioned the concept of tyranny of average, what is being done in your area to ensure that is algorithm equity?
Well, many things, especially for the data fund. Well, I lead one of the well, I mean, embedded in innovation team. We're a team of 30 people, depending on the areas of specialization. And what we have done is develop a model for funding, seed capital funding, either for ideas that are innovative at different country offices, and this is the most important thing, refugee-led initiatives. I think we're one of few agencies that actually have opened what we call the refugee-led fund, and where refugees themselves, regardless of their legal documentation and status, because we know they don't have formal identity documentation, so formal NGOs, sometimes they cannot even raise it. We allow them to apply, and then we figured out how to transfer the seed capital funding that we're doing for them to be able to tell us what the services and businesses and ideas and things that they care the most. So one of these ideas, for example, on fairness, equity, and to try to avoid the tyranny of the average, as they call it, is refugees. There's this NGO. Well, it's a collective, a group collective. It was called Welcome Place in France. It's a collective of refugees, and it's merged with what we call host communities, so it's French and refugees, and from all other nationalities. They're creating this, I would say, banking the unbank solution, leveraging a bit AI for trying to analyze and open bank accounts for people that don't have all the documentation, right? Because you need documentation to open a bank account. Refugees don't have it. And if that solution is being built, it's to analyze if the documentation is not fraudulent, but actually it's a document. Maybe it's the copy of the passport, right? Sometimes they lose even the personal documentation in the flight journey. And so if they manage to do that, they can open to other people that are maybe beneficiaries of banking systems in France, if they crack the code for that one, right? That's an idea that is coming from refugees themselves, because they have seen that problem in France themselves, and they say, we think we can do it with this startup, and if we do it, then maybe we can open the floor for others. I think you need to be humble, and what the agency concretely is doing is opening the floor for them to tell us what they need. So I know it sounds logical, but it's not. Usually, technical people, they believe in the technocracy, which is like, we know better than you
Tell me
because we
about
are
it.
the experts. It's a tyranny of the experts of, was Easterly, William Easterly, one of the papers that he wrote. And in this sense, like, we are not the experts. We are the technical knowledge, yes, as Pablo is saying, and technical background, but maybe the experts is these people that are in your police station, Pablo, to say, oh my God, they're doing so much thing with my paperwork. Is there a way that maybe I can speed up my appointment with the judiciary or something like that, right? So we need to understand what our customers, clients, or in our case, our refugees, people that we serve, in the case of the government, is your constituents, what they want, and allow them to make that space for you to create systems that they need. Whenever you're needed, then you're relevant. If you're not needed, you're not relevant. And then your business or your organization is dying. And so that's one of the things, right? So if you want to remain relevant, then be humble and then create systems that are useful for them. Otherwise, then you are, as you were saying, not Darwinian in this case because we're like dinosaurs. I mean, there could be more rockets or more meteorites hitting your way, but then you can just adapt into a bird and then don't remain a dinosaur that is impending to die. Anyway, but yeah, I wanted to hear from Pablo. Pablo, so are you implementing AI? What specific area are you implementing AI? Pablo, are you there? Very curious about AI in the police. I hope it's for the ticketing system. I think Pablo is muted. Anyway, maybe he can put it in the chat in case he's in a meeting or something. Yeah, it's just a fascinating police and AI. It's usually kind of like a law enforcement is one of the red areas or areas of risk for the European Union. But it might be that it's AI that is on efficiencies for administration and then welcome because it's saving
kind of
time,
what
right?
Diana just said. How much can we trust AI in the police administration to apply justice? We are falling into the same kind of
that's judiciary.
wrong
Maybe Pablo
impression
is just using it for the tickets of your fines for your driving license.
for the
So maybe
mechanical.
AI is like
Okay.
this, right? It's not doing judicial decisions yet. But yeah, I was just wondering how are they using AI into what processes are they using AI in law enforcement? I'm fascinated to know. If Pablo is there, then speak out. If not,
Yeah,
you can type
Pablo,
it in the
please,
chat.
if you listen, please join us. On the meantime, if you agree, Rebe, I would like to close with this last question, falling more into the academia, because we all agree that one of the human rights is education. And it was one of the fields that received a huge impact with the implementation of AI. And the main concern is how to maintain a high level of learning performance. And this is coming especially from faculty. Does your organization has some examples on how avoid the decrease on the learning tools with the implementation of AI?
Yeah, and that's the part of the upskilling. Because reskilling is trying to adapt AI to your work, but upskilling is trying to learn how to leverage the tools. And not only that, is how to um, learn other knowledge, technical knowledge that maybe you were not aware of. Specifically, my team and my organization is on another level because they're using for other things. My team has a learning team dedicated to learning innovation methodologies, human-centered design, co-design, design thinking, and we have kind of like a fellowship program. So you apply to the fellowship program and you are 1 year in a learning program where you learn innovation as a topic of research. Many books, PhDs in innovation, and so innovation in the terms of humanitarian sector, but you can do innovation for companies, etc. And so my team is a 3 people team, and fellows apply in thousands per year, and they only can leverage like 100. And for them to teach them innovation, they used to organize webinars, like every month a webinar with us a new topic, like a lecture, basically on innovation. People attended the lecture and then they came out with a thing. What they did is leverage an AI to create content. So they put their favorite research papers on innovation. They put their favorite pieces of videos and things like that that they found in YouTube or other things. And they told like, please create a paragraph and a quiz on co-design thinking approaches applied to a refugee camp, and then do that and embed this video. And so they created courses using Gen AI for the content that they want. And so they're viralizing innovation indirectly, but creating something that is meaningful. So in the education setting, and I know it's controversial because, as I told you at the beginning, what skills do you want to develop? Do you want to develop analytical research skills? Then you do this work and then let AI maybe find you additional sources of information. But if you want to just become the person that is the clerical, cleaning the data, then you do prompt everything there, believe whatever is in the model, and believe that that's your ultimate truth that is being copy pasted into your homework, right? Like students and critical thinkers don't do that. Like it's like to counter, like, am I thinking or missing something on the thing that I'm thinking, right? So with your prompts, you're also feeding into the machinery as well. So you better do it offline. I heard a Stanford professor 3 weeks ago that he was saying, I'm a computer scientist and I give them research work about computer history, etc. No? So that they are researchers in computer science. And they're saying, I give the following task to my students. The first two assignments, homeworks, he said, I told her it is ultimate forbidden to this academic dishonesty pending to use Gen AI. And you were a computer scientist, so you need to use Gen AI at some point. But the first two, and he said, I do a benchmark baseline. I try to understand how they write with the grammar mistakes and everything that they do and stuff for them to know how they think. And then say, in the third assignment, you're gonna use generative AI, you're gonna cite your sources, and we're gonna discuss what prompts did you use in the class. And so it's then like, because what I want is to develop the critical thinking is why did you prompt this and not this? Why did you, what are you thinking this and diverse of this colleague that is thinking otherwise, right? Why did you include women in this one, right? Etc. And so he said, and then I see 100% increase in the rate of the quality of the proposal. And then I argue like, this is human augmentation. You did better things, but also it's about not doing it on your own and in your silo. It's about discussion. So creating those spaces for discussion, which is what my team, specifically you asked me, what's my organization doing? My organization is leveraging to create and disseminate knowledge that otherwise will be only reaching 100 people, which is the fellows who are the scholars. And so they're doing now the content and put it on the internet, which is like, and anyone else that wants to learn, the knowledge is there. And they're becoming faster. They have created now 3 or 4 courses with Gen AI. And before they used to do those 4 courses of the fourth of the 4 months because it's the webinars. Now they have 4 courses and they're doing more and more. So they're knowledge workers. They're generating knowledge, obviously with the content that they know, right? So they cannot recommend Gen AI things if they don't know it first. And so that's it's on one thing. But there's many other things that we're doing. Human resources is creating some sessions on how to understand, for example, fraud in applications, because you don't want your written exam to be specifically. So they're doing skilling on their own HR force to detect Gen AI. You can detect it now. It's very obvious in some formatting cases. But they're using counter tech tools to be able to detect job applications that are written by Gen AI in order for them to be, they look and they know, say they look the same, they have the same written thing. And so it's also about yourself when you want to distinguish to apply for a job, do it humanly. Because like HR colleagues now, they are skilled to detect who wrote a cover letter with AI.
What an enrichful talk we have had today, I think. And of course, it's a topic that could be bring it back a dozen of times, and we will not finish all of that involves AI.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you again for your inside perspective on this. Are there any final words from you, from Diana, to close this talk we have had with the EXATEC Association of International Relations?
Well, before I say goodbye and thank you to everybody and especially to Rebecca, Rebe, would you like to give us final words and final tips and final, I mean, all of your talk, all of your conference has been like really amazing. And thank you so much for that. But maybe you want to just leave us with something. I mean, the void of leadership and the need for multilateralism, with one, create services and efficiencies in your area of work. And believe me,
Yeah.
I'm teaching development and technological changes next semester to my students at the Monterrey Tech. And I think that a lot of what you've been saying, I'm going to implement this, like, especially like activities and all of it with
Right.
AI and all of it. But what else would you like to tell us, Rebe?
Final
Final
word. I
words.
mean, technology is a tsunami that is hitting us in the face. Either you grab your board and start surfing, or you're just gonna become extinct at some point, right? So you need to know how to swim on this one and navigate it and leverage it to, if you want to detect fraud, there's tools to do that, right? If you want to, like, you don't want people cheating on with AI on research and stuff, because then you're creating a dumber generation. What you want is for them to become augmented superhumans, as they call them, which is leveraging that for their skill sets and creativity that they already have for them. And you as manager, as worker, as boss, as employee, also you want to become that person, right? Because then you're needed. Otherwise, you're gonna be substituted by someone that knows better and knows the tools better than you, and it's faster than you because of that. But yeah, so the tsunami is here, and you learn how to swim. It's gonna take you with the tide.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Abigail, also for being our moderator. Really, it's been like really a pleasure to have you both, my colleagues and contemporaries. No, and also I received a lot of messages for you both. For instance, from Doctora Luz Araceli Gonzalez, who's here. Also, some of our former professors who couldn't attend, but were they're expecting the recording conference. So thank you so much, Rebecca, again for all of this
You're welcome.
information.
On the contrary,
And
I remember
see,
Dr. Víctor López Villafañe when he told it when China is doing high tech, then the geopolitics is changing, and I'm just seeing China leading AI, and I was like, okay, this is the moment that Dr. Villafañe was warning us about the rise of China. They didn't care about the tariffs, if you remember. They're like, okay, let's do that. Let's play microprocessor chips tariff war, and I'm like, oh, this is moving into another direction. That's fascinating also in the geopolitics and trade sector, AI, but that's for another conversation.
thank you so much, really. And see you soon, everybody, in another Charla con el Experto. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye, guys.